This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Most of you are not just listening right now. You're driving, you're cleaning, even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
It's 1972. A young British family is attempting to sail around the world when disaster strikes. Their boat is hit by killer whales and it sinks in seconds. All they have left is a life raft and each other. This is the true story of the Robertson family and their fight to survive, hosted by me, Becky Milligan. Listen to Adrift, an Apple original podcast produced by Blanchard House. Follow and listen on Apple Podcasts.
Hey everyone, quick heads up here at the top. Congress has been working late this weekend, so things may have changed a bit since I recorded. With a deal to end the government shutdown seemingly in sight, it's worth taking stock of all the chaos we've borne over the last 6 weeks. Our transportation system had started to get messy, with airspace restricted from coast to coast. Reliable food aid had become hard to find, too. Some Head Start programs had begun shutting their doors. Then there's what's been happening with special education. When I asked Pepper Stetler to describe the state of special education last week, she said this.
I guess in one word, I would say tenuous. It sometimes, I think from a structural perspective, looks like it is hanging on by a thread.
Pepper's a professor who writes about education and disability. She says it was about a month ago when the trouble started. Reduction in force notices went out to hundreds of Department of Education employees, a shutdown-related punishment doled out by the White House. More than 100 of these DOE workers were part of the team that oversaw special ed all over the country. They ensured resources got distributed equitably, had been doing that since the 70s. Then one day, they simply were not there. A court put these firings on hold, but that did not make parents feel much better. Pepper knows this personally.
I have a 13-year-old daughter with Down syndrome, and I often think about what her life would have been like if she was born and started school before 1975, and it would have been pretty bleak.
Pepper's daughter is named Louisa. She's in 8th grade.
Special education gives her what she needs to learn beside her peers in a mainstream classroom.
So you just send her off to school like any other kid?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not like special ed in this country had been perfect, but for 50 years, it was there.
I imagine you're in a bunch of group chats and WhatsApps and Facebooks with other parents who have kids with higher needs. What are those places like right now?
Yeah, it's full of fear. But also, I've heard from a lot of parents who say, well, I don't see how, say, getting rid of oversight is really going to change since I've been waiting for a response on a complaint I filed to the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education for months and haven't heard anything, right? So kind of like, what good are they anyway?
The thing is, even when the government opens up again, many of the cuts to special education may remain.
Do you think your friends and neighbors understand what's happening with special education right now?
No, I don't think they do.
Today on the show, Pepper and I, we're going to make sure you know what started happening with special education, shutdown or no, because one day, you or someone you love could need it. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
It's 1972. A young British family is attempting to sail around the world when disaster strikes. Their boat is hit by killer whales and it sinks in seconds. All they have left is a life raft and each other. This is the true story of the Robertson family and their fight to survive, hosted by me, Becky Milligan. Listen to Adrift, an Apple original podcast produced by Blanchard House. Follow and listen on Apple Podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Quince. As the air turns crisp and the holidays draw near, comfort becomes the best gift of all. And Quince delivers with everyday essentials that feel luxurious, look timeless, and make holiday dressing and gifting effortless and totally comfortable. If you know me, you know that I get cold when the seasons change, like iceberg cold. But I also hate being bogged down under a million layers. This is a little conflict for me. But that's why the other day I found myself digging through my closet for the shrunken Mongolian cashmere sweater Quince sent me last year. Because it is totally non-bulky and incredibly warm. Perfect right now as the seasons are changing. Quince has got it all as you get a little colder. Even a cashmere t-shirt, which is really sweet and soft to wear. Everything is made for everyday use. They've even got coats, Italian wool with quality that rivals high-end brands, but without the markup. So step into the holiday season with layers made to feel good, look polished, and last from Quince. Perfect for gifting or keeping for yourself. Go to quince.com/whatnext for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/whatnext to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/whatnext.
I want to sort of tell the story of special education in this country from the beginning, if we can, because I think we should explain that special education, the whole system, is relatively new in this country.
It really is.
Can you give me the history here? Like, when did special education become something the government was funding, and what was life for kids like before that?
Right. Okay. So special education became something that the government was funding officially in 1975 with the passing of the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, which eventually became IDEA a couple of decades later.
IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act.
That's right. So before that, it was pretty grim in the sense that 1 in 5 children with disabilities were educated in public schools.
What happened to everyone else?
Yeah, so either they were in institutions, they stayed home, there were some private schools, but they weren't educated, and schools could legally refuse to enroll children with disabilities. And many states actually had laws explicitly excluding children that schools deemed uneducable.
That's so interesting to me, because the whole idea of being uneducable, who decides that?
Right. So this was usually students like my daughter, somebody who had an intellectual disability. And it was perfectly legal to not educate students with disabilities.
Okay. It seems to me like before 1975, if you had a child with a disability, a lot relied on your particular family's circumstances, how much money you had to take care of them, how much ability you had to advocate for the school system and say, hey, include my kid because they're educable.
Right.
So 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act passes. What did it establish? How did it change the lay of the land for kids with disabilities and their families?
So basically, it mandated that all children with any form of disability must be provided what says a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. That's basically what it mandated, that states and school districts could no longer turn away a student because they have a disability.
And this law, it was made to put money where its mouth was, right? Like it allocated a certain amount of funding from the federal government?
Yeah, that's right. Like there was a acknowledgement on the part of the federal government that this was going to cost some money, and if they expected the states to actually follow this law, they were going to need to help them out.
Is it a light switch where all of a sudden kids are in schools?
It happens a little bit slower than that, but what basically happens is that there's a law now that a school cannot exclude a student because they have a disability. So I think at that point, you probably have a lot of cases where a student with a disability might be enrolled in a school, but not really getting what they need to learn, right? So students probably were there, but not necessarily learning to the best of their capacity, just because there wasn't a lot of thought given yet and research about how to educate students with autism, how to educate students with other cognitive disabilities at that time.
So this law, it was a floor, not a ceiling. It was like, okay, you can get into the schoolhouse. What you do there relies on how much advocacy you then do around the law we've passed.
I mean, sort of, because as laws often have, the wording of IDEA says that students will be provided a free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment. And that phrasing of least restrictive environment has been left up to a lot of interpretation of what exactly that means. Many people, including me and advocacy groups for parents and students, would say that the least restrictive environment is the mainstream classroom. That's what they meant. But there's some gray room in the law so that that doesn't always have to happen. If a school district interprets what the least restrictive environment is for a student differently than a parent, then that's where you get a lot of, I think, conflict and tension around the law and the placement and the actions of a school district that are trying to implement that law.
Part of what I think is so interesting about the implementation of the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, this IDEA law, is the funding and how complicated that was. Maybe even not complicated, but again, open to interpretation. Like the law originally said the federal government would contribute up to 5% of average per pupil expenditure by 1978. That was supposed to increase incrementally to up to 40%. And what I'm noticing about that is it's not we will contribute 40% or even 5%. We will contribute up to.
Right.
So that means the federal government actually doesn't have to put all that money in there.
That's true. So it's a kind of constant need on the shoulders of advocates to, remind Congress of their responsibility to fund special education.
How much does the federal government actually fund special education at this point? Where is it on that 0 to 40% threshold?
So they are now funding 10.9% of the average per pupil expenditure. And please don't make me explain how you calculate the average per pupil expenditure. It's really complicated, but it's this kind of very small chunk of what a student needs to learn.
So this really leaves states on the hook for a whole lot of money here.
Right, exactly.
And these days, what percentage of students are served by these disability laws?
Yeah, so right now there's about 15% of public school students are served by IDEA in some way. I mean, and that
15% strikes me as a lot of kids. It's a significant proportion.
Exactly. So it's lots of different disabilities, anything from a cognitive disability to dyslexia and a learning disability to autism to hearing impairment. It's a lot of different disabilities and differences that are covered.
I'm getting the sense that this law is imperfect, but can you just explain what's improved in the lives of students with disabilities since these laws were passed in 1975 and since then?
Oh my God. I mean, so it's It's like a matter of going to school or not going to school. Like the difference is pretty dramatic. I mean, I am thinking specifically from the position as the parent of a child with Down syndrome. But like there is a correlation between the right of children with disabilities to go to school as established by IDEA and the education opportunities for students or for people with disabilities, that starts going up too. We have also within those 50 years, post-secondary education programs for students with intellectual disabilities as well. So those start. There's a way in which IDEA really kind of cracks this door of all of these opportunities and ways in which people with disabilities can participate in our communities that they just were never allowed or thought that they could do before.
The other major way IDEA changed the landscape for students with disabilities is it turned the federal government into a watchdog. The law established the right of disabled kids to an education, and the federal government was empowered to step in if states failed to deliver it. They've done that again and again, like in Texas.
Going back to about 2016, the U.S. Department of Education found multiple systemic violations of IDEA in Texas. And I would say most notably, a state-imposed limit that discouraged districts from identifying more than 8.5% of students for special education. So this kind of arbitrary cap on who could be identified as eligible for special education.
What did that look like in practice? Like if I had a kid in Texas who maybe is having trouble reading, if I get there a few years too late, does it just mean, sorry, Charlie, you're not getting the service?
It could. It would also mean that students, and this is also part of the law, is that school districts are required to identify students for special education, to kind of actively seek out and make sure every student that they think is in need and eligible is being served. And then when a student is identified as in need of special education services, they're put on what's called an individualized education plan or an IEP, which is a document that's supposed to be the result of a kind of conversation between the parents and schools about a plan for a child's education. And that just wasn't happening. Like the IEPs weren't getting done. This happened and was really kind of solved, or at least started to be monitored by the Department of Education around 2018. And then the TEA, the Texas Education Authority, submitted a plan to resolve this later that year. And then by June of 2025, the Department of Education really determined that Texas had met the required corrective actions and removed the kind of sanctions and conditions that it had ascribed to Texas.
This sounds like a happy ending, except in October, the government shut down. And the Trump administration used that shutdown to try to fire nearly everyone in the Office of Special Education Programs, the people responsible for the kind of enforcement Pepper is describing. Those jobs might be coming back, but for now,
there's nobody left there to kind of check up on Texas and make sure that they're still doing what they need to be doing.
And it seems like checking up on Texas was the only reason this got fixed in the first place.
Yeah, that and a very intrepid journalist who broke the story. So it's a way in which it feels as if parents have been abandoned by the federal government. We used to be able to count to some degree on the federal government having our back. At least that's what the law says.
After the break.
But now there's nobody there to
help us.
What else is lost
when the federal government guts special ed oversight? This episode is brought to you by Built. By now, you have probably heard of Built, where you can earn points on your monthly rent payment. But did you know they make it possible for you to get more outside of your home, too? By paying rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But it doesn't stop there. Built is about making your entire neighborhood more rewarding. You can dine out at your favorite local restaurants and earn additional points, get VIP treatments at certain fitness studios, and enjoy exclusive experiences just for Built members every month. Built is turning a monthly expense into an opportunity to earn rewards and discover the best that your neighborhood has to offer. Your rent is finally working for you. Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood, wherever you call home, by going to joinbuilt.com/whatnext. That's joinbilt.com/whatnext. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. joinbilt.com/whatnext.
This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks makes it easy to find the perfect gifts and holiday looks that suit your personal style. The holidays can be a whole lot of things. Fun, relaxing, but also a little stressful because you've got a long list of friends and family and you gotta find a gift for everyone. If you go over to Saks.com, I guarantee it's going to jumpstart all of your ideas for what you should be getting your friends and family. It is the only website on the internet where you're going to find super high-end luxury Prada sneakers next to a crystal floral A-line gown from MacDougall. And then that's right next to a Cynthia Rowley ombre long-sleeved wetsuit. These are things I did not know existed until I went to Saks.com. And now I'm like, maybe I should be getting a bathing suit for my mom this Christmas. Maybe. Going into this holiday season, I feel confident Saks is there to help me find inspiration, curate a holiday wish list, pick out gifts for my loved ones, and have a look ready whatever might come my way. Whether it's an office holiday party, a cozy night in, or a vacation getaway, Saks has got everything you could want. If you're looking for shopping to be personalized and easy this holiday season, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to shop for everyone on your list.
The Trump administration is gutting environmental protections on a scale never seen before, opening pristine wildlands to drilling, rolling back pollution standards, blocking clean energy projects, weakening species protections. But there's a movement that's fighting back, and it needs your support now. The Natural Resources Defense Council combines the power of 3 million supporters with 700 lawyers, scientists, and advocates. This community gives NRDC the collective power to hold corporations accountable and win in court. That's how they won nearly 90% of cases against the first Trump administration, protecting endangered species, blocking harmful pipelines, and safeguarding clean air and water. Every victory happened because people refused to stand by and do nothing. Join this powerful movement preserving the natural world for future generations. Donate at nrdc.org/next and your gift will be matched 5 times.
So talk to me a little bit about what's happened over the last 9 months as Donald Trump has come back into office for his second term. Obviously, he put Linda McMahon in charge of the Department of Education. She made a big deal about talking about how she was there to shut things down, essentially. And then we have the government shutdown happening now, which at the beginning, Trump administration basically takes it as an opportunity to shut down federal oversight of special education services, possibly permanently.
Right.
It sounds like it's been a whirlwind if you're a parent.
Right. And another thing that has happened is his budget proposals basically to take parts of the funding from IDEA and basically do what's called block granting with them. So kind of take that money that was for things like parent support centers, teacher supports and training, research, not the stuff that was kind of directly for students, but take those other parts. And what he wanted to do with them is basically give that money to the states and say, like, you can do what you want with this money. There will no longer be any oversight over whether you use this money for disabilities and for students in the way it was intended or not. So there's all sorts of ways in which we have seen the not only the kind of abandonment of special education, but just the erosion of all of this infrastructure that has supported the education of students with disabilities for decades.
Yeah, I mean, the Department of Education oversees special education because of a law, right, that Congress passed.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth mentioning that the law predates the Department of Education, but that's nonetheless worked out well. And there's been talk of shifting the oversight, such as it is, to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that, administers things like public health insurance and the safety of food and drugs and medical devices, not exactly where we're going to see a lot of expertise in terms of education.
Yeah, can the president just decide to do that?
Congress would have to amend IDEA in order to move oversight to HHS.
Part of what's striking to me about this dismantling of what the Department of Education does is how it can sometimes seem petty. Like, we saw how the administration is trying to get rid of grants that provide teacher training and parental support, what you just alluded to. My understanding is that those grants, they're like $30 million, which it's a lot for me, but it's not a lot in the federal budget.
Right. It does seem petty in that sense. And it's petty also in the sense that, funding and supporting special education and disability rights has never been a partisan issue in this country, basically until now. There's always been support for disability rights and support for special education from both sides of the aisle. And it really seems like he's not so interested in saving the money as much as he is denying the civil rights of people with disabilities. That's really what I'm left to assume and conclude.
Yeah, it strikes me too that the right to an education is not explicitly guaranteed in the Constitution. But I actually think most Americans consider it a right at this point. It's so embedded in our culture and it's so available that I think if you were writing a new constitution now, you might be like, yeah, and we provide education up to age 18 or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think you're right that most people do think of education as a civil right, a right that every American should have. And it's, part of being a citizen is being well educated. And this brings me back to thinking about something else that IDEA has allowed to happen is for people with disabilities to be better citizens, to participate in their communities more, to have more professional opportunities after school. So in that case, absolutely, there is a way in which special education, should be a civil right.
You said something which caught my ear, which is that the law that passed in 1975, IDEA, these disabilities laws, they were the difference between kids going to school and not.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you're concerned in this moment as special education oversights are rolled back in Washington, whether it's going to start to threaten the ability of kids to actually get into a classroom.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the worst case, right? I mean, there's a way in which it's important to remind ourselves that IDEA is not being repealed. Like it is still a federal law, even though the Trump administration is kind of working to make it as toothless as possible.
Yeah, I mean, a law that has no funding and no enforcement mechanism doesn't really strike me as much of a law at all.
It's true. I don't know. I mean, I cannot play this back in like 10 years and who knows where we'll be, but I cannot imagine returning to that moment in which students are actually turned away from education even if it is a inappropriate education that could be monumentally better. I cannot imagine that, just because I think that our just general sense of humanity and compassion and empathy towards people with disabilities has made some progress over these 50 years, thanks to the law as well, right? Like we are...
Can you not imagine it because you don't want to imagine it?
Maybe. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it also seems completely dystopic to me. That we would become a place where we don't even allow students with disabilities in the door. I can't imagine.
Pepper, I'm so grateful for your time and your reporting. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so
Pepper
much for
Stetler
talking
is
with
the
me,
author
Mary.
of
I really
A Measure
appreciate
of
it.
Intelligence, One Mother's Reckoning with the IQ Test. She's also a professor at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. And that's our show. What Next is produced by Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Anna Phillips, and Madeline Ducharme. Paige Osburn is the senior supervising producer of What Next and What Next TBD. Mia Lobel is the head of audio at Slate. Ben Richmond is the senior director of podcast operations. And I'm Mary Harris. You can go track me down on Blue Sky, say hey. I'm at Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.
There's about 10 seconds left on the clock. The Instacart shopper has to nail this handoff. He's flying down the sidewalk. He's looking for the receiver. Lining up the pass. And he did it! Game day is saved!
Wait, Dad, did you forget Div?
And we're back. Get ready for game day with Instacart and get $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply. 3 orders in 14 days excludes restaurants. Instacart. We're here.